The film The King's Speech has attracted a lot of attention. Now, it did so at Cranfield too, but for different reasons probably from most people. Lionel Logue, the speech therapist, in our eyes, looks to be the first executive coach. And we thought it worthwhile asking somebody that knows about executive coaching to explore this further. Vivian Vella, you've got a lot of experience of executive coaching. Can you see parallels?
Absolutely, a brilliant film. There are two main parallels for me, and I think the first thing that really shows up in that, the relationship is key between the coach and the coachee, in terms of the coach creating a safe environment where leaders, and this, in the film's case, the king, very high leader, where it can be quite lonely at the top, and to be able to have a space where a little bit of vulnerability can be shown so that some things can be addressed in a safe and challenging, a supportive and challenging environment that's provided by a coach.
Now, I noticed one of the things the king did was to rebel a bit, and that Lionel tackled him on this, and there was really quite an emotional moment during the film.
Absolutely. And that brings me on to the second point, really. I think what that relationship and the coaching process shows is there are two different types of coaching. There's developmental and transformational. The developmental part is, the skills and techniques that are absolutely appropriate to learn and to develop strengths and to do things differently, to exercise sort of the metaphorical muscle that isn't used as much. And of course in the film it was very literal in terms of using muscles that he didn't use. And so that's absolutely valid. And there's a transformational piece, and I think it was in that relationship where there was a bit of a rupture and the king got connected to something very different, a very different place in him. I think he got connected to his anger, actually, and passion. And when he came back, he was absolutely ready to do the real work, because it's not easy necessarily. And that was a transformational piece. It transformed their relationship, and the real work could be done at that point to lead to success, I think.
Now, executive coaching seems to become, almost from nowhere really, something that's become very popular in the business world. Why do you think that is?
I think it's something about pace, actually. We live in a frenetic world, and leaders and managers go from one place to the next, and increasing demands are made on them. And I think a coaching process supports their learning and gives them an opportunity to have a reflective space, actually. Evidence has shown, in terms of studies, it's up here on our website, around formal learning is about 10% effective, and it has its place. 20% of effective learning is done through others, and I think programs encompass both of those elements, experiential programs. And the 70% piece in terms of effective learning is on-the-job learning, and I think the coaching process really offers that. Because when you set up an initial contract with a coachee, you have certain goals and objectives that you want to achieve. And those might have come out of some 360 or psychometric profiling. In the King's Speech, there was a very definite speech that had to be done and delivered correctly. But the on-the-job piece is that you have these very special conversations that address what is absolutely relevant at the time for the coachee in service of achieving those ultimate goals. So it's not a linear process necessarily, although ultimately you want to see a visible difference in the business. But you address what is key for the coachee at that time. And I think that's what makes the relationship very special in terms of having this place to be able to do this and have those sorts of conversations. I think Peter Hawkins refers to the coaching conversation, and he's chair of the Bath Consultancy Group and has written about coaching, mentoring and consulting. And he calls it a robust dialogue born of fearless compassion, which I think really sums it up. And you don't often get that sort of quality in a conversation in service of helping somebody's learning.
So is that what makes it special? You've got some goals to aim for, and you've got this fearlessness about tackling issues that maybe wouldn't get tackled otherwise.
Absolutely, in a trusted environment, and that is key, so that you have the relationship there, and there's a lot of learning actually within the relationship, and I think we saw that in the film as well, you know, because what goes on in the coaching relationship, you know, will be observed because it could actually be reflecting what goes on outside. So your experience of the coachee will be in part how they are experienced back in the business. And a coach can make those observations, which can be really useful learning for the individual.
Now, one of the things I noticed in the film was that over time, the King started to say, well, I don't need to see you so often now to Lionel. Is this the sort of thing that you would expect, or is it a bit of a kind of lifelong relationship?
I think that's really appropriate, actually, and it comes to working with an ethical code. I think that normal practice would be to contract at the beginning with the coachee, you know, what it is that you are there to address in terms of their learning, how many sessions you would want to initially contract with, so that there is a checkpoint that could be recontracted at any point, but you have some boundaries around that. And of course, the main focus of supporting the coachee in their learning is that they become independent learners, so that you don't foster a codependency in that relationship. And that's another reason that you know, the supervisor is important to check that that's not happening.
So there's more to this coaching than meets the eye, but I think what you've done is give us some very useful pointers there. Thank you very much, Vivian.